and welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CRISC Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. A risk-aware culture is not simply about compliance. It is about embedding risk understanding into the way people work, think, and make decisions at all levels of the organization. In such a culture, employees recognize that their actions, whether technical or procedural, can either increase or reduce exposure to risk. They understand what red flags to look for, how to report issues quickly, and when to follow control procedures without hesitation. This culture is not built overnight. It is created and sustained through deliberate training programs, leadership example, and continuous reinforcement of values. For CRISC professionals, cultivating a risk-aware culture is a strategic function. It means going beyond checklists and toward behavioral alignment with the organization's security, compliance, and risk management objectives. On the exam, when user behavior causes risk exposure, the root issue often traces back to a missing or ineffective culture of awareness. Security awareness training is a foundational tool for building and sustaining this culture. It is not just about teaching users what not to do. It is about helping them understand why controls exist, how their behavior matters, and what role they play in the broader risk environment. A well-structured training program transforms policy into action and technical control into human habit. It helps users internalize risk expectations and apply them in their day-to-day tasks, whether aligned to ISO 2701, NIST NACFF, HIPAA, or local regulations. Training helps ensure that all staff, technical and non-technical alike, understand their part in protecting systems and data. When done well, awareness training turns abstract risk concepts into lived experience. On the exam, awareness and security culture questions often focus on the depth and delivery of training, its alignment with current threats, and whether it achieves real behavioral change. Designing an effective security awareness program requires strategic planning. CRISC professionals begin by aligning training topics with actual risks faced by the organization. This includes common threat vectors such as phishing attacks, social engineering, insider threats, and improper data handling. It also includes role-based considerations, since employees in finance, IT, HR, or executive roles each face different levels of exposure and responsibility. Training must also match users' system access levels. Those with administrative rights need different content than frontline staff. A one-size-fits-all training model is rarely effective. Delivery formats should be blended, including e-learning modules, simulated attacks, interactive workshops, visual posters, micro-learning emails, and team briefings. Engaging users across multiple channels helps reinforce lessons and accommodate different learning preferences. Quizzes, feedback forms, and scenario-based simulations should be built into the program so that progress and comprehension can be measured. Programs that are engaging, personalized, and context-aware tend to have far better outcomes than those that rely on generic videos or policy recitations. Key training content areas must be selected based on the organization's threat landscape and risk profile. These usually include secure password practices, such as avoiding reuse and enabling multi-factor authentication, training on how to identify and report phishing emails, one of the most common attack vectors, is essential. Users must also understand how to classify data correctly and how to handle it based on sensitivity, which supports both privacy obligations and business continuity. Acceptable use policies, remote access protocols, mobile device security, and cloud system access are also key topics. Employees should be trained to recognize social engineering tactics, including phone-based or in-person manipulation attempts. Incident response procedures must be clearly communicated so users know how to escalate potential issues. Physical security procedures like badge usage, workstation locking, and visitor management also play a part in many environments. CRISC professionals must ensure that each topic is rooted in real risk, supported by documented policy, and linked to relevant technical controls. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. The timing and frequency of training delivery have a significant impact on retention and behavior change. Annual awareness sessions are still widely used, especially for regulatory compliance, but they are insufficient on their own. CRISC professionals must plan for layered reinforcement. This includes quarterly refreshers, monthly tips, or short video modules to keep topics visible. Simulated phishing tests or mini scenarios can be delivered on a surprise basis to test real-time awareness. Training must be mandatory during employee onboarding and during project initiation, especially for projects involving new technology, vendors, or sensitive data. When a major incident occurs or when a new threat emerges, rapid responsive training updates should be rolled out. For example, if a new form of credential harvesting malware begins circulating, users should be trained immediately to spot suspicious login prompts. Awareness content must evolve alongside the threat landscape. On the exam, outdated or static training programs are common scenario flaws. A clue such as training was last updated 3 years ago signals a failure in the training lifecycle. Effectiveness must be measured not just by completion, but by comprehension, engagement, and behavioral outcomes. CRISC professionals use several types of metrics to evaluate training success. Completion rates help track participation, but they must be paired with post-training quiz scores, user feedback, and click rates on phishing simulations. Measuring how many users report suspicious activity or how quickly they escalate incidents can help indicate behavior change. Key risk indicators can also be applied, such as tracking the number of incidents caused by human error before and after training cycles. Governance platforms can automate much of this tracking, issuing reminders, escalating overdue assignments, and generating dashboard reports for leadership. Measurement should support continuous improvement. If certain teams consistently score low or if simulations reveal repeated errors, targeted reinforcement must follow. On the exam, strong answers reflect training programs that include assessment and iteration, not just a one-time event with no feedback loop. Security awareness training must be governed like any other formal program. Ownership typically resides within the security, compliance, or risk management functions. These teams ensure that the program content is relevant, that delivery schedules are maintained, and that participation is enforced. Training outcomes must be reported to risk committees and executive leaders, particularly when significant gaps are identified. High-level reports may include metrics like training participation rates by department, improvements in phishing test outcomes, or reduction in policy violations linked to behavior. Awareness program results may also be presented during audits or regulatory reviews, and proper documentation must be maintained. This includes training calendars, content archives, participant logs, and performance summaries. On the exam, a scenario where training is run but never tracked or enforced likely points to a governance failure. The correct answer in these situations often involves establishing ownership, reporting mechanisms, and structured oversight. Cultural reinforcement beyond training is what creates lasting change. Executive leaders must not only approve training initiatives but also participate and model secure behavior. For example, when executives complete phishing tests, attend briefings, or speak about security in company meetings, it reinforces that the culture values risk awareness. Recognizing and rewarding risk-aware behavior helps reinforce the message. This might include acknowledging users who report phishing attempts, encouraging team competition in training events, or highlighting security champions in newsletters. Risk awareness can also be built into performance reviews or onboarding expectations. When users see that awareness is valued, they are more likely to adopt it as part of their work. Encouraging a non-punitive reporting culture also increases participation. Users must feel safe admitting mistakes or escalating potential issues. On the exam, culture-building questions favor answers that promote openness, leadership engagement, and positive reinforcement, not fear or rigid enforcement alone. Despite strong efforts, awareness programs often encounter challenges. One common issue is that training has been delivered, but incidents still occur. In these cases, CRISC professionals must examine whether the method was engaging, whether the content was role-specific, and whether the scenarios were realistic. Another common challenge is disengagement. Users may view training as a checkbox or may tune out due to repetition. To counter this, programs can introduce gamification, storytelling, or real-world examples. For distributed workforces, content must be mobile optimized and flexible to accommodate remote schedules. Cultural and language considerations must also be addressed for global teams. When obstacles arise, the answer is to adapt the delivery, not to abandon the awareness mission. On the exam, questions that present challenges with training often reward answers that include customization, user feedback, and incremental improvement. When answering CRISC exam questions related to awareness and culture, focus on the link between behavior and risk. You may be asked what control best reduces user-driven exposure. The strongest answers will point to monitored, structured, and tested training. You might also be asked why a policy was violated, and the answer may involve poor awareness, role confusion, or outdated training. Some questions will focus on culture itself, how to promote risk-aware behavior, and the best responses will involve consistent communication, leadership support, performance tracking, and training that evolves over time. You may also be asked what is missing from an awareness program. Common gaps include role-specific content, feedback mechanisms, post-training testing, or executive visibility. The best exam answers reflect the idea that awareness is not an event. It is a control domain and a culture-building mechanism that must be continuously measured, governed, and aligned with risk strategy. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cybersecurity Risk Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.